Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let us begin with our today's session. Just to recollect, in the last session we have discussed about the logic for Tower of Hanoi problem in the last week, and further to that we started with the uh, classification of data structures, what data structure is, and uh, then we have seen that it can be classified into two types. Either it can be classified as static and dynamic, or it can also be classified as linear and non-linear. So in the classification, we have seen that for static data structure, we have something like arrays, and for dynamic data structures, we have something called as linked list, where this classification is there in terms of the size of our data structure. So it can be fixed, or it can be variable, or it can be flexible. Then second type of classification that we discussed was linear and non-linear, where in linear the data structures are arranged in sequential manner. So the elements are organized one after the other. So the types of this data structures are stack and queue. And then we also have a non-linear data structure in which the elements are not organized in linear fashion. So they may be organized in, say, some hierarchical manner, or they may be organized in some random manner. So we have some types in non-linear data structures like trees and graphs that we are going to discuss in the subsequent part of our curriculum. Now, before we do that, we also started with a discussion on the complexity analysis in the last lecture. So complexity analysis is a concept basically which is useful for us to uh, which is useful for us to analyze the algorithms or analyze the solutions that we write for our programs. Now these can be analyzed in two ways, either in the form of space complexity or in the form of time complexity, where the space complexity will be discussing about the storage requirements of our solutions. So how much amount of memory is required to execute that program, how many variables we declare while executing that program, and further what is the storage requirement for the program code that we have written, right? So all these kind of space related things are coming under the category of space complexity. And further to it, we have second component, that is time complexity. Now this time complexity can be thought of in two ways that we discussed in the last lecture. That is, either we can talk it in terms of the actual execution time of our program, or it may be in terms of the asymptotic notations. Now actual execution time, we discussed that this may vary from system to system. So if I'm executing one solution on a high end computer, then it may require less amount of time, considering the compute capability of that high end computer is more as compared to a low end computer, right? So if I'm executing it on a Pentium machine or a Celeron machine as compared to i3, i5, i7 processors, then I may feel the difference in between the two solutions. So in order to avoid this, either we have to make sure that the executing scenario for the two logics is kept same, or else we can go for some generic methodologies for comparing the time, and that are in terms of the asymptotic notations. Now, before I begin, let me share my screen from my end. So just give me one sec. I'm trying to share my screen. All of you are able to see my desktop, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we were discussing about the time complexity, right? So time complexity can be decided in terms of asymptotic notation, I told. Now, what are these asymptotic notations? These notations try to give us some generic information about the amount of work that we are performing in the given solution. What it talks about? It talks about some general notations in terms of the amount of work that we do in a particular solution. Now, what do I mean by amount of work that we do in a solution? Let us take one example of matrix multiplication that we have seen in our syllabus till now. Now, what we do in matrix multiplication for a 3 by 3 matrix multiplication, we try to calculate 9 answers, right? In a 3 by 3 multiplication, we'll be having total 9 answers. What is this answer? Each answer, what is each answer? it is basically a product followed by addition, correct? Because for cell 0 0, what we do 3 multiplications, right? 0 0 multiplied by 0 0, then 0 1 multiplied by 1 0, and 0 2 multiplied by 2 0. So every time in the logic, what we do, we try to perform a product and try to add the answer of that product to a uh, already produced sum from the previous products, right? So it is basically multiplication followed by addition. So my amount of work for matrix multiplication logic becomes multiplication followed by addition. Are you getting this? What is amount of work for matrix multiplication? Amount of work for matrix multiplication becomes multiplication followed by addition. Multiplication followed by addition. Now this work is for this problem, that is matrix multiplication problem. Now whether this work will be same in every problem? No. Every problem will have a different flavor, right? So if I am trying to solve some other type of problem, say for example my problem is Tower of Hanoi. What in Tower of Hanoi, what was my work? My work was to perform a move, right? What was my work? My work was to perform a move, right? Moving a particular disk from a particular tower to other tower. This was my work, and that we were performing for some number of times. That we were performing for some number of times. What was the number of times in case of Tower of Hanoi? It was 2 raised to n minus 1. Are you remembering, right? So for shifting n disks, we were requiring 2 raised to n minus 1 number of moves, right? So the amount of work in case of Tower of Hanoi problem, amount of work in case of Tower of Hanoi problem was moves. And what is moves with respect to our programming logic? It was nothing but a printf statement. It was nothing but a printf statement, right? Because one move for us is nothing but typing printf as far as the computer program is concerned, right? So what I want to explain from this to you is that for every problem the amount of work will be different. For every problem the amount of work will be different. And can I represent this amount of work with some standard complexities? So the answer is yes. We can represent this amount of work with some standard complexities, and these standard complexities are nothing but your asymptotic notations. Now how I can represent that? So for representing that, we have some standard complexities which I am going to mention here in front of you now. Okay, we are going to discuss now few of the standard complexities that we can use to represent the amount of work that we perform in any problem. Okay, what is the first standard complexity? The first standard complexity is constant. What is the first standard complexity? First standard complexity is constant. Now what do I mean by constant? It is my request, Mudassir Mujawar, you are trying to change your name and trying to get admitted to the lecture again and again. It is my request, you have to keep your name same, because after 9 o'clock if you start coming to the lecture, it creates a lot of disturbance because I have to keep on admitting you. So don't change your name even if you get disconnected due to network issue. While coming again inside the lecture, don't change your name, because if you change your name again it will ask me for approval. So try to keep your name same because it is creating disturbance for others also. So please cooperate. Okay, coming back to our logic. So standard complexities are, for the first standard complexities that we are going to discuss is constant complexity. Now what do I mean by constant complexity? Say for example, I am trying to solve one problem, okay, and that problem is involving suppose 100 elements. So my input for that problem, suppose my input for that problem is 100 numbers, okay, and imagine that for that problem, once I solve that problem, I am able to execute that problem in say 5 seconds. Okay, so for 100 number of input, I'm getting my required output in how much time? In 5 seconds of time. Further, suppose I increase my input size. Suppose I increase my input size. Now suppose my input size is 200. Now suppose my input size is 200. Again for 200 also I am getting my output in 5 seconds of time. Again for 200 input size also I am getting my answer in 5 seconds of time. Again I increase my input size. Suppose my input size is increased to 300. Again I am getting the output in 5 seconds of time. What I want to show from this is even if I keep on increasing the size of my problem, the size of the input of my problem, still I am able to get my output in fixed amount of time. So I am performing fixed amount of work irrespective of the size of problem. So even if my size is getting incremented still, or if it is getting decremented also, but still my time remains constant. My execution time remains constant. My amount of work that I execute remains constant. And these type of solutions are coming under the category of constant complexity. So constant complexity are not dependent on the input size. So it is always good, na? So even if you execute your program for say 1 lakh records or 2 lakh records or 3 lakh records, but still I am getting the answer in fixed amount of time. So always the programmers or coders who are writing the solutions are always dreaming of writing such type of solutions, that my solution is giving me constant time complexity. Why it is good? Because tomorrow even if my data keeps on increasing, still I am going to get output in fixed amount of time. So constant complexity is always a good complexity. Constant complexity is always a good complexity. Now, next type of standard complexity is linear complexity. Next type of standard complexity is linear complexity. Now, what do I mean by linear complexity? It is in the name itself. Linear means what? Sequential. Linear means what? Sequential. So suppose I am having say 10 inputs on which I have to execute. See, again it is creating disturbance. Some students are coming. Soham Pawar, please make sure that you write your roll number and then name. Don't use any underscores while joining, because if you keep on changing your name pattern, it will disturb, because I have to use my mobile phone for admitting you in the lectures. So I need your cooperation. If you people don't cooperate, we will lose time in our lecture. So please, it is my humble request that I have given 10 minutes before for you to join. I have also given you the format of the input. Most of you are following, but few students are creating nuisance value. Why you are adding underscore to your name, I don't know. Sairaj Takle. I don't want to humiliate you people in front of all, but you people have to cooperate. Thoda professional paddhatina vaga, please. Okay, coming back to linear complexity. So linear complexity means if I keep on increasing my input size, then my output time is also going to increase now. It is not going to remain constant. And that output time is going to increase in linear fashion. So linear fashion means suppose 10 is my input size, then I am going to get output in 10 units of time. If input is 20, then I'm going to get output in 20 units of time. If my input is 30, I'm going to get output in 30 units of time. So this is not like constant. In constant, what was happening? If I was increasing my problem size, if I was increasing my number of inputs, then my output was remaining constant. But here my output is also incrementing in linear fashion. 1:1 you can see. For 10, 10, then 20, 20. Now, if I try to plot this in the form of a graph, suppose, so if I try to plot this in the form of a graph, how this will look? For 10 x-axis, I am having 10 on the y-axis. So this will look like a line in 45-degree angle, right? This would look like a line with a 45-degree angle, right? So this is nothing but my linear complexity, and linear complexity is written as n, because for n inputs I am having n unit of times to be executed. So, and in the graph you can see this is that n complexity that I have plotted. This is that n complexity that I have plotted. Now, the third complexity that we have is logarithmic complexity. What is it? The third one is logarithmic complexity. We call this complexity as log n. We call this complexity as log n complexity. Now, what do log n will indicate? Now, suppose my input is n. Okay, this is my input. Now, my output will be not n. My output is log n. My output now is log n. So, what will be log 10? Log 10 is 1, right? 1.0000. You all know, right? You must have calculated logarithm in your mathematics, right? What is log 20? It will be 1 point something based on whatever you find in that log table, right? But it will be 1 point something. What will be log 30? Again, it will be 1 point something. Till what? Till 100. What will be log 100? Log 100 will be 2.0000, right? So, for linear, this was, for 10, this was 10. For 20, this was 20. For 30, this was 30. And so on. For 100, it was 100. But log values look lesser than n values, right? Log values are lesser as compared to n values. So we can say, in other words, that logarithmic complexity is better than linear complexity because log n is always less than n. Are you getting this? Log n will be less than your n. Log n will be less than n. So we can also comment that. Logarithmic complexity is better than linear complexity. Now, if I try to plot this in the form of graph, where this will come? This will come somewhere below my linear, right? This will come below my linear because we all know that linear is at a 45 degree. So it will be below that. So I call this as my logarithmic complexity, that is log n. That is log n. Next complexity that we have, standard complexity that we have is quadratic. What is the next one? Next one is quadratic. And quadratic is represented as n square. Quadratic is represented as n square. So it is in the name itself. If n is 1, 1 square is 1, 2 square is 4, 3 square is 6, 4 square is, 3 square is 9, 4 square is 16, and so on. So this will look something like this, n square. It will be more than n. So we can say that linear is better than quadratic. We can say that linear is better than quadratic. Are you getting this? These are just, I'm trying to fill the numbers in that n, and I'm trying to compare that which complexity is better than the other, right? So logarithmic is better than linear and linear is better than quadratic. Then we have next standard complexity in the form of cubic. What is the next standard complexity? It is in the form of cubic. Cubic I represent as n cube. Cubic I represent as n cube. So we all know now that n cube will be not good, right? N square is better than n cube, right? So n cube will look something like this. N cube will look something like this, right? So this is n cube for me. Initially, they might overlap for few of the values like 1, because 1 for 1, n is also 1, n square is also 1, n cube is also 1, right? So that's why I'm showing some overlap over here initially. But after that, we can say that n is better than n square and n square is further better than n cube. Then we also have another complexity, standard complexity as exponential. Another standard complexity as exponential. Now what is this exponential? This exponential is nothing but complexity that is 2 raised to n. So exponent, correct? So if n is 1, exponential complexity is 2. If n is 2, it is 4. When n is 3, it is 8. n is 4, it is 16, n is 5, it is 32, and so on. Now these exponential things are worst amongst all. So this is something like this. I'll erase some part of this 30 so that it will not create confusion for you people. Okay. So this is something which is exponential. This is something which is exponential for us. Now, apart from these standard complexities, 6 standard complexities that I have mentioned, that is constant, linear, logarithmic, quadratic, cubic, and exponential, we also have some hybrid complexities. We also have some hybrid complexities. Now, what is hybrid complexities? These hybrid complexities are combinations of these standard complexities. These are some combinations of these standard complexities. Now I will give one example for you to understand what do I mean by hybrid complexity. Likewise, you can make any combinations out of it. So one combination I'll make, that is n log n. So this is a hybrid complexity which is formed by taking product of linear with logarithmic. So n multiplied by log n is my hybrid complexity. How I obtain this? By taking product of linear with logarithm. N is linear and log n is logarithmic, right? So when I take product of linear with logarithmic, I am getting one of the hybrid complexities as n log n. Now, if I ask you to plot this hybrid complexity in the graph, see, if I ask you to plot this hybrid complexity in graph, how this will look? Now, which one? Let us try to compare whether linear is better, logarithmic is better, or hybrid is better. Which hybrid? N log n. Now, we have at least got relationship between linear and logarithmic. That logarithmic is better than linear. But what about this hybrid, that is n log n? Now, if we observe that if the value of n is say between 1 to 10, see, if the value of n is between 1 to 10, what will be your log n? What is log 1? It is 0. Correct? What is log 10? It is 1. Correct? So what will be log 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, whatever are the numbers in between? I am taking one sample, that is 7. It will be 0 point something. It will be 0 point something. So what will be n log n in that case? So n log n for the first value is 0. For the value 10, it is 1. But for these values between 1 to 10, that is 2, 3, 4, this value will be less than 1. Sorry, this value will be less than n. Sorry, this value will be less than n. So if I am having say log n, that is log 7 as say 0.64. So when I take product of 7 with 0.64, it will be less than 7. It will be less than 7. So this answer will be something like 5 point something or so on. I'm taking some random example. What I want to show from this is n log n will be less. N log n will be less than n. N log n will be less than n till you reach to 10. At 10, what will be n log n? N log n will be equal to n. N log n will be equal to n because log n is 1 in that case. So 10 multiplied by 1 will become 10. After 10, so if my n increases, say 11 is there, 12 is there. So log n will be 1 point something, 1 point something, right? For 13 also 1 point something. And in that case, these answers of n log n will be greater than n, because if I multiply 11 by 1 point something, then this value will be greater than n. This value of answer will be greater than 11. This answer will be greater than 12. This answer will be greater than 13. Are you getting this? So if I try to compare n, that is linear complexity, with the hybrid complexity n log n, I can say that till the value of n is below 10, till my problem size, n is nothing but my problem size, right? So till my problem size is below 10, in that case, I could say that the hybrid complexity is better because n log n is less than n in that case. Correct? When the value of my problem size is equal to 10, in that case, my n and log n, that is linear and hybrid complexity, both are same. And when my problem size is greater than 10, then in that case, we can comment that linear, that is n, is better than hybrid, that is n log n. Now, if I try to plot this in the form of graph, how this will look? I'm trying to compare this now with n log n, right? So suppose that this is the margin of 10. For example, suppose this is my 10. On the axis, I'm showing this as my 10. Okay. So if I consider this as my 10, so till 10, I told you that n log n is better. So n log n will come below n. Correct? It will come below n. At 10, both will be same. At 10, so this is my 10, intersection of 10. Correct? So at 10, both will be same. And after that, n is better. So it will cross this line. Did you understand how that pattern of blue line is coming? So what is this intersection point? In that case, this intersection point is indicating that the problem size is of 10. In that case, linear and n log n both are same. Linear and hybrid n log n both are same. So this graph which we have seen right now, up till now, so this one, yes, any queries? Someone is trying to unmute. Any doubts? Can use the chat box also if you have any doubts. Feel free to ask doubts. Okay, so this graph which I have shown right now is showing me the relationship between various standard complexities that we find while giving solution to any problem. Okay, I again repeat, which are these standard complexities? To quickly revise, which are the standard complexities? We'll read it out again, right? First one is constant. Okay, so constant complexity is nothing but a complexity in which the output time is not dependent on my input. Even if I keep on increasing my input size, or even if I keep on decreasing my input size, it will make no change in my output time. So I can show you one sample constant also in the diagram. Okay, so I'll show it with some other color. I don't know whether yellow will be visible for you people. So this line which I have drawn, the yellow line now which I have drawn here, so it is a constant complexity. So even if my n is keeping on increasing, or even if my n goes on decreasing, if it goes in any direction, still some time it is requiring. So that some time I can see here in the form of some constant. So this is that k constant. This is that k constant, and it will remain same over a period of time. So it will not change. So this is something which is constant complexity. This is something which is constant complexity. It is always better to have a solution which will give me a constant complexity, Now, next is linear complexity, which is n. Next is logarithmic, which is log n. Then quadratic, that is n square. Cubic, that is n cube. And finally exponential, that is 2 raised to n. And we also have some hybrid complexities. One example I have shown you, that is n log n. Likewise, we can make any other hybrid complexities like n square log n, n cube log n, 2 raised to n log n, right? So I can mix these complexities amongst each other to get many such hybrid complexities. So one such most famous hybrid complexity which we find in many of the solutions, that's why I took that as an example, that is n log n, right? So n log n, in overall picture, we can say that n log n is worse than n, because if I see only for first 10 numbers, n log n is better, but after that n is better, right? So overall I can comment that linear is better than this particular hybrid, that is n log n. But if my problem size is less, then for sure my hybrid n log n is better than linear complexity, that is n. Are you getting this? Now, how we represent this complexities now? Now, if I go back to my matrix multiplication example, which I have told you. So what was my work that I was performing? I was performing multiplication followed by addition, right? What was my work? My work was multiplication followed by addition, right? It was multiplication followed by addition. Now, how many such multiplications followed by additions you do? We do it for 9 times for a 3 by 3 matrix. If you remember, right? We calculate 9 answers. And for every answer, our work is to do multiplication followed by addition. We calculate 9 answers. And how many times you do that multiplication? In every answer, you do it 3 times. Right? For every answer, again you do 3 multiplications followed by addition, because we have one I loop, then one j loop, and inside that we have one k loop. Are you getting this, right? So if my problem is n, so we were doing 3 by 3 matrix, right? So in that case my n was 3. My n was 3. My n was 3. I'm getting some comments on YouTube. I don't know how it is getting now on YouTube. Okay, so 3 by 3, that is n is equal to 3. Then we make 27 such calculations, because for outer 3 loop is there, inside 3 loop is there, and again inside that again 3 loop is there. So 27 times we will do multiplication followed by addition to get the total answers, right? So it is coming out to be n cube. So it is coming out to be n cube. N cube multiplications followed by addition. So what is the complexity? Complexity is cubic complexity. N cube. Are you getting this? So complexity for matrix multiplication is n cube. And what is the amount of work? It is multiplication followed by addition. Now next example that I had taken, that was Tower of Hanoi. So in Tower of Hanoi, how many moves we do? 2 raised to n minus 1, right? So 2 raised to n minus 1 means which complexity it is? It is exponential complexity. It is exponential complexity, that is 2 raised to n. So minus 1 is just a constant in that case, but overall we can say that the complexity is exponential complexity. So complexity of Tower of Hanoi is 2 raised to n, and the amount of work is the number of moves. So this is n cube multiplications followed by addition, and Tower of Hanoi it is 2 raised to n number of moves. Now while we write this, we also add some notations to these complexities on the left hand side. So in middle we will write the standard notations. So what are the standard notations? These are the standard notations which I have written right now, that is n cube and 2 raised to n, correct? So these are nothing but sum of these will be there, that is constant or linear or logarithmic or quadratic or cubic or exponential or hybrid. So something from these things will be there as part of standard complexity. The right hand side part will be what? Right hand side part will be the amount of work. Now this amount of work will be changing from one problem to other problem, as I stated. So for matrix multiplication it was multiplication followed by addition. For a Tower of Hanoi it was moves. Now on the left hand side to this, we add some notations. Now what are these notations? There are 3 types of notations. Okay, if you just know the basic meaning of these notations for data structure, it is more than enough, because you also have one more subject in your syllabus, that is computer algorithms, that you are going to study in 3rd year. In that particular chapter, you are going to go more in depth on this left hand side notations. So I'll just give you a glimpse today of that part, because that is not in the part of curriculum of data structure, but still as an extra knowledge I'm telling you that on the left hand side we add 3 notations to this from asymptotic notations. These 3 notations are big O. What is the first notation? The first notation is called as big O. I'll tell you the meaning of these notations also, okay, one by one. Big O. The second notation is omega. The second notation is omega. And the third notation is theta. The third notation is theta. I'll tell you meaning of these notations. What big O indicates? Big O indicates upper bound. What big O indicates? Upper bound. What is meaning of upper bound? What is meaning of upper bound? Upper bound means maximum limit. If I tell you in Marathi, this will be something like this. जास्तीत जास्त एवढं असं आपण म्हणतो त्याला, right? Upper bound. So at the most, this much is required to be done. If I have to tell like this, at the most 2 raised to n moves are required to shift n disks in Tower of Hanoi. Will I require more than 2 raised to n at any point in time? No. Correct? Are you getting this, right? So when I want to express my complexity as a statement like this, that this is the maximum amount of work that is required to be done. This is the maximum amount of work that would be required. I may require less than that, but I will not require more than that. जास्तीत जास्त मला एवढं काम करायला लागणार आहे, ह्याच्यापेक्षा कदाचित कमी लागू शकते. असं आपल्याला जेव्हा रिप्रेझेंट करायचं असतंय, we call it as upper bound and we use the notation that is big O. Are you getting this? I again repeat, what is big O? Big O is representing upper bound. Upper bound indicates maximum limit. So that is indicating the maximum amount of work that is required to be completed. It will not go beyond that. It will not go beyond that. In the regional language, for my students, if I try to explain in Marathi, it is जास्तीत जास्त एवढं. ह्याच्यापेक्षा जास्त लागणार नाही. ह्याच्यापेक्षा कदाचित कमी लागू शकतंय, पण ह्याच्यापेक्षा जास्त लागणार नाही. अशा पद्धतीने जेव्हा आपल्याला कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी मांडायची असते, तर त्याला आपण अप्पर बाउंड म्हणतो आणि त्याला आपण नोटेशन देतो बिग ओ. The next notation that we use is omega. The next notation that we use is omega. Omega indicates lower bound. What omega indicates? Omega indicates lower bound. It is opposite of upper bound now. What is lower bound? Kamit kami evda, right? So it is indicating me the minimum benchmark. It is indicating me the minimum benchmark. So at least this much amount of work has to be done. At least this much amount of work has to be done to get the answer. Below that it cannot come. It may go above that. It may go above that. When I want to represent my complexity in such manner, we use omega notation, that is lower bound notation. So it indicates that minimum this much amount of work has to be done to get the answer, but below that it won't allow. Above that it may take, but minimum this much amount of work has to be done. When I have to represent my complexity in that fashion, I go for omega notation, which is lower bound. And the third one is theta notation. So theta notation is basically combination of big O and omega both. So theta is indicating me lower and upper bound both. So it is a tight bound. So minimum एवढं लागणार आहे and maximum पण एवढंच लागणार आहे. So I can say Tower of Hanoi is better getting suited as theta, because for shifting n disks, we have to make that 2 raised to n minus 1 moves, right? So the complexity is going to be 2 raised to n for sure. It cannot be less than that. It cannot be more than that. So the better notation that we will be using for Tower of Hanoi will be theta. Are you getting this? More such examples of notations you will get in the due course of curriculum. In today's lecture, you only try to understand the meaning of these notations. Okay, so big O is a notation which is useful for representing the upper bound. Upper bound indicates the maximum amount of work that will be required to be done. It cannot exceed that boundary. Correct? It cannot exceed that boundary. It is the upper bound. Second is omega. Omega indicates lower bound. Lower bound means it indicates that this particular solution requires these many number of minimum steps to be executed. It cannot go below this. It may go above that, but it will not come below this. This can be represented with help of omega notation. And the third one is theta. Theta is basically upper and lower bound both. So the same value is representing, so we can say that it is something like equal to, right? So it indicates both upper and lower bound. So in that case, the notation used will be theta in that case. So we have seen in today's lecture the concept of time complexity, and in time complexity we have seen that there is some amount of work that we perform in any solution. This amount of work will vary from one problem to another problem. I gave you an example of two problems that we have discussed up till now, that is matrix multiplication and Tower of Hanoi. I also showed you that the amount of work that we do in matrix multiplication is different from that of Tower of Hanoi. The amount of work in matrix multiplication is multiplication followed by addition, and the amount of work in Tower of Hanoi is the moves, which is nothing but our printf statements. Now with this, we have to write some standard complexities. These standard complexities are of following types: constant, linear, logarithmic, quadratic, cubic, exponential, and hybrid. We have seen relationships also. Constant is always better. Then comes logarithmic. Then comes linear. Then comes quadratic. Then comes cubic. And then comes exponential. Hybrid, depending upon what type of hybrid you do, it will be placed accordingly. One such example of hybrid that we have seen today is n log n, in which if my problem size is less than 10, n log n is better than linear. If my problem size is equal to 10, linear and n log n both are same. And if my problem size is greater than 10, my linear complexity is better than n log n. So we can substitute the values of n to compare these type of hybrid complexities with the standard complexities. With this, we also write few notations on the left hand side to indicate our complexities. These three type of notations are big O, omega, and theta. Big O indicates upper bound, omega indicates lower bound, and theta indicates both upper and lower bound. Both upper and lower bound. So with this, we have covered the article of space and time complexity from our first chapter. Now it is required that we, now this you may get a short note type of question on this, that as far as your theory paper is concerned, you may have a short note on space and time complexity. So space complexity, we don't have much to write in it basically, because we all know, see, we don't discuss much on space. Now I'll tell something which is not part of syllabus, but see, space complexity we didn't deliberate much. Why? Because nowadays if we observe, space is not a concern. See, space is not a concern. We easily use cell phones nowadays, 64 GB, 32 GB, 128 GB, right? In cell phones we are using it. So storage has not remained a concern. Storage, because cloud platforms have come, right? We are using platforms like Dropbox, then cloud platforms where we can store our data, portable hard disks are there, right? So storage has not remained a concern in computer science. But how you can process that data efficiently to get the solution in quick period of time is very important. I have many photos in my mobile phone, but whether I am able to get all such photos from my mobile phone in which my face is there. So we need some application which will process these data quickly, right? Because I have sufficient amount of storage, so I'm not bothered about my storage. But whether I have good programs, good solutions written so that I'll be getting my result in quick period of time. So we are interested more in optimizing the algorithms, in optimizing the solutions, so that I will be able to get my results in quick period of time. And for that, our focus is more on the hardware, which can be used for executing, which is nothing but our processor. And second is our algorithms, our programs, our solutions that we write, whether we can write it more effectively, whether we can reduce the number of moves, whether we can reduce the amount of work that we perform, right? Whether we can go from exponential to cubic, whether we can come from cubic to quadratic, whether we can come from quadratic to linear, right? So always developers are in a run behind improving the complexity of their solution in terms of the standard complexities. Are you getting this? So you may write this as short note for space and time complexity. And in our first unit, we have definition of data structure and its classification, which we have covered. Then we have recursion and its types, that also we have covered. For recursion, basics of functions were required. So I have taken revision of function. So what is a function? What are types of function? Then how we can create our own user defined function. And then I have taught you recursion, examples of recursion. So few examples like factorial and Fibonacci series we have seen. And then we have seen one problem, that is Tower of Hanoi and the logic for that. And then we have the last article, that is space and time complexity from our first chapter, which also we have covered. Now actually we have to start with data structures from next lecture onwards. Now for those data structures, the first data structure that I'll start will be linked list, which is the dynamic data structure, right? And for this dynamic data structure, we require concept of structure and pointers from C programming language. So before I start that topic, I'll be teaching you structure and pointer in the next lecture. I will not start linked list directly. So in the Wednesday's lecture, I'll first take you through the concept of structure and pointer. But again, I repeat, I'll be only teaching that much part from structure and pointer, which will be required for linked list. It is not possible for me to teach you each and everything of function, structure, and pointer. Don't have that expectations from my lectures. Whatever is required for data structure, only that much part I will revise. I'll spend 1 or 2 lectures in revising that, and then I'll start teaching data structure. But apart from that, there are other functionalities also available in function, structure, and pointer, which I would like to appeal all students to do some sort of self-study at your end also. With this, I say that we conclude today's lecture. Before stopping today's lecture, let me take your attendance. Let me download your attendance. Just wait for a moment so that I can verify if it is downloaded correctly. Just a moment. Just a moment. Today is 13th July.